Welcome to the WanderLearn show. I'm your host, Tapon. In this episode, I interview Brendan Rousseau. There are 3 episodes where I'm going to be featuring him where we talk all about space and his new book that he has co-authored. And the name of the book is called Space to Grow. In the first episode, we talk about what is different in outer space today. In the second, we talk about space tourism. And in the third, we talk about the Kessler Syndrome, which could doom us to stay on Earth. He's an amazing guy. He has an amazing pedigree. He is the strategy manager for the New Glenn rocket at Blue Origin. He went to Williams College, where he has a bachelor's in astronomy and economics. He went to Phillips, Exeter. He's a teaching fellow at Harvard Business School. He went to Booz Allen as a consultant. This guy's done quite a bit. Hope you enjoyed this 3-part interview with Brendan Rousseau. Excellent. Now, I don't want to be a Debbie Downer on this issue, but at the end of your book, as I talked about with Matt, your co-author of Space to Grow, there's a lot of mentioning of the Kessler Syndrome. Now, the Kessler Syndrome is basically there's an accident in space, which then sets off one satellite spinning in the wrong direction, hits another satellite, which breaks into pieces, which hits another satellite, which breaks into pieces, and before you know it, you've got a clusterfuck in the sky because all these satellites are hitting each other. And
that's the technical term for it, by the
yes,
way.
It is.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. I saw it in research papers everywhere. Clusterfuck.
Yes. Yeah. A CF, we call it. A CF event.
Exactly. So, and that's the Kessler Syndrome. And as a result, if you can imagine just a complete clusterfuck in the sky, you can't send anything into space because there's just chaos up in space. And so nothing, and all the satellites get deorbited, and just anyway, it's a complete mess. Yeah. And so I always thought, okay, yeah, theoretically possible, but in your book, it sounded like it's actually plausible. What do you say is where do you stand on the issue on a kind of a percentage basis of the likelihood of such an event happening in the next 10 to 50 years?
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought it up. And for folks who are having trouble imagining what that looks like, I encourage them, if you watch the movie Gravity with Sandra Bullock, that's essentially the whole premise of the movie is they're astronauts on the International Space Station and an event happens. And then suddenly, this calm, happy environment of near Earth orbit turns into shrapnel ripping around the planet.
CF.
Yeah, it's a full CF event. And the scary thing about orbital debris is that, number one, there's a lot of it already. There's the government tracks this debris, and there's tens of thousands of pieces, especially in low Earth orbit. And they move at 17,000 and a half miles an hour. So that's many, many times faster than a rifle bullet. And stuff in space tends to be pretty sensitive. It's like peppering, if there were collisions, it's like peppering these sensitive satellites or, God forbid, astronauts with shotgun shells, except going much faster. So it's a huge problem. And go ahead, yeah.
And it doesn't help that I know China's done it. I'm sure United States has done it too. Yeah. We've actually purposely shot missiles to destroy satellites as a test or as a show of force to intimidate everybody. Look at what we can do. But in so doing, of course, they actually cause or take us one step down that path. The military is blowing up satellites and then basically creating a headache for everybody up in space, including themselves.
Yeah, 100%. If you look at graphs of the amount of debris in orbit over time, there's these spikes, pretty dramatic spikes of more debris that pops up specifically in the aftermath of some of these anti-satellite missile tests. So thankfully, a few years ago, the United States declared that we will no longer conduct these tests, which is fantastic. We proposed a UN resolution to try to get everyone on board. So far, not everyone's on board. So that's the national security side of it is certainly something to think about and something that's being talked about more and more these days. But as far as how concerned should we be about it, I think it's a really interesting question because, of course, when we talk about the business of space and this kind of seemingly unlimited economic value in the long term we could provide, we're also dealing with questions of market failures that arise. We celebrate this increase of activity, but of course, more activity means more, for lack of a better word, space trash that we're creating and more stuff in space that will be negatively affected by that space trash. So one of my favorite chapters in the book is one that focuses all on this, is about a company called Astroscale, founded by a Japanese former IT executive named Nobu Okada, who fell back in love with space after a midlife crisis, and said, you know what, space trash is something I should deal with. And so he created a company that's all around trying to remove debris. And he and his team have had a bunch of success. They're doing some demonstration missions on orbit now, and they're really moving the needle when it comes to orbital debris. But we ask them a question at the end of that chapter where we say, you're 10 years down the road now of your, I think we call it a space trash odyssey. How do you feel about orbital debris? Are we getting closer to a solution? Are we moving further away? And he said, we are in a more dangerous spot now, even after all the work that he and others have done. Said the amount of activity keeps going up and up. Number of satellites keeps going up and up, and he feels like it's almost inevitable that something will happen. Now, the good news is there's a limited number of actors that are doing real big activity in space today. SpaceX has pretty much half the active satellites on orbit now, and then a handful of companies and governments have pretty much most of the other ones. So for us as economists, we think about ways to solve market failures. When you have a limited number of actors and potentially really serious consequences for if action isn't taken, that's usually a good recipe for being able to make some progress. The opposite example would be climate change, where you have a huge number of actors and a huge number of different incentives, and so it could be very hard to coordinate everyone to move in the right direction. In space, I think there's definitely reasons for optimism that no one wants to destroy not only that existing value, but the potential value that space can provide us. The challenge is that not everyone sees things the same way. You mentioned correctly anti-satellite missile tests, and space is of course a domain of national security interests as well, and so some of those discussions can be a little bit thorny. I'm fundamentally an optimist.
If you imagine a war breakout, God forbid, between over Taiwan and the United States and China are going at each other, one of the first things that many of them might do is just take out their eyes in the sky, which is their GPS. Absolutely. As well as the space. What's it called? The space.
SIBRS, space-based infrared sensing system. It's our missile warning system.
That too, as well as Starlink. Endless things that are in space that are important to the military. That could be, and that's the whole foundation of Space Force. So what's percentage chance, and quickly, what would you say in the last couple of minutes that you have left, what would you say that is the percentage chance that Kessler Syndrome will happen in our lifetime? Would you say 80%?
I am fundamentally an optimist. And so I think that the percentage is fairly low, because I believe that as the risks increase, the individuals who are making those decisions will take the right steps to make sure that doesn't happen. But of course, that requires individuals making decisions. And that's part of the reason, frankly, why we wrote this book, is to highlight both the opportunities and the challenges, and to show through the case studies of specific companies, which really boil down to individuals in the seat making the decision, that these things don't just happen automatically. It takes people jumping in, assuming the risk, and making the right choice. And we hope that if there's any outcome that happens from us writing this book, it's a few more people jumping in and seeing themselves as that potential decision maker.
Excellent. Well, Brendan, it's been awesome talking with you. I've really enjoyed it. It went by so fast. But where do people get to know a little bit more about you, follow you either on social media? Obviously, the book, Space to Grow, is in the link below. Any other places you want to send people to, or action items that you want to give them?
Sure. Yeah. So I think the best place, if you're interested in this kind of research and thinking, is at economicsofspace.com. It's where we publish some of our research out of Harvard Business School. And then I'm on LinkedIn. If folks have any other questions, I love talking with people who have questions about space. So feel free to shoot me a message on LinkedIn at Brendan Rousseau.
Awesome. Wonderful. Thank you again. And good luck with the book. I hope it does super well. It should.
Thanks so much. Thanks, Francis. I appreciate it.
And that ends this episode of the WanderLearn podcast, where we explore travel, technology, and transformation. If you'd like to see the show notes with links to what we've talked about, go to wanderlearn.com and click on this episode. If you'd like to connect with me, just remember Tapon. That's my first initial and my last name. Tapon is always my social media username. My website is ftapon.com. Do you want to leave me an anonymous voicemail where you can make a comment or ask a question? Then go to speakpipe.com/ftapon. Furthermore, if you'd like to get rewarded for supporting my projects, then go to patreon.com/ftapon. That's where you can pick up some remarkable rewards for as little as $2 a month. Now, 5 quick favors. Number 1, subscribe to the WanderLearn podcast. 2, download it. 3, share it. 4, review it. And 5, sign up for my newsletter at wanderlearn.com. Our theme music was composed by Eric Stratman. This is Francis Tapon, encouraging you to wander and learn.